anaasɛ ɛsoma wodoma hotelfo ebenya de akwakodi ho anaasɛ edin ene wo nanso eni ho ɛsɛ nipa da sani ebetu akɔwiem ene onyankropɔn akɔtena democracy ɛyɛma bibifo anaasɛ ɛnyɛma yɛn kwasi broni trim popa ene senti a wɔde vaccination ɛba abibiman mu na family plan so mpo no ɛhyehyɛ bɛn ana kwasi broni hyehyɛyɛ ɛwɔ de krom enti a wɔde ɛtoa yɛn ɛba ne sɛn ana gay ate atese ɛwɔ wiase afana nyinara ɛnɛ wese illuminati ɛnɛ wese freemason ɛnɛ wese sumwe mu ne nyinara ahyase firi he no broni trim po a wɔde sanyema we nyinara ɛba no de atoa bibiman mu no ɛne sɛn we entram so hwɛ wake up africa kwasiada we ni kwasiada bia awia dumienu ɛkɔpem awia no mienu live on Royal TV ɛyɛ adwumadi a ɔfa poku danko yɛ executive director ɛdema free the mind movement ɛne ɔfa Israel Nkroma a ɛyɛ coordinator ɛdema free the mind movement no
ɛbɛka me Kofi Kumi ho
na yɛsi nkonya no madi dwumadi ho kyia me na ɛnsɛm bi ɛtise no yɛgyina twɛ kronkron so abakɔsɛm ɛne ntwerɛ ahodoɔ so na ɛdeɛ mo ho baabi a obibini ufiri ɛne mu a ɛduro ɛne soma a wosombo amabrɔfo sisi akyɛ ɛbra so sɛ call together atwerɛ ne kaeɛ no ɛtumi bam ne no ana ahyɛ aseɛ o free the mind movement dwumadi ɛfrɛ sɛ wake up africa dwumadi so bra so sɛ yɛfa dwumadi live on Royal TV so kwasiada we ni kwasiada bia awia dumienu kɔpem no mienu na yɛagye wo so adwenkyerɛ ne wasɛm bisa yɛyɛ ano ɛde ama wo wake up africa abibiman moma yɛn sɔre
one business general Abatown Niko multimedia so pay video editing photo shoot photo editing documentary business advert music video funeral program birthday parties onua uni haukra esan say Niko multimedia ebeye ni nyina na so yenwie yo so we your wedding papa bi Niko multimedia si enha ho kra o me cover ni nyina ma so we are sorry anaso say we edwumakuo bi a opese wo streaming live o program aye social media handles na aye Twitter Facebook ane de keka ho na Niko multimedia se woni how esan so mo ye ni nyina live abra program na ekoso Niko multimedia se omotonton gadget aye media gadget papa ebini aye audio and video equipment cameras speakers microphones mixers ni nyina Niko multimedia aye ho adwuma Niko multimedia ewo Koforidia eho ana motare betimi afre Niko multimedia ewo 0244549107 aye Niko multimedia the media general ewo town. Thank you.
Amuna oba ye krumze oba betray yamesu eche no toni ba eche no dia sanse akwa
when it is our share aye dwumadi happen this Wake Up Africa our Royal Television so onim se premoto kwese da bia se ya ofidie we so no na enye asem kuma kwa osomfo Kofi Kumi bedi magwa se ya me ne mpanyifo mienu na kwese da biara no premoto a yesi nkonwa na yakobema no so na etumi de ne woso bia no ayi apie ne de asomo na mpanyifo a kwese bia menyom de dwuma ye wo fa ya opoku dankwa a oye executive director edema Eko FN Free the Mind movement ona ne ba Israel Nkroma a ono so ye national coordinator edema Eko FN Free the Mind movement prematu yi mpanyifo no mene mpanyifo no yesi nkonwa na ebewura bama no so nsem bia no ene tampuchu na onsa beka wo de eye na wotwe sende ena mpanyifo yi agi nkonwa e ofidie yi so na omotena ase na omwuru abama no so na nsem wo ho no mo yi pie ma yebehu se ene yen social system a yehu no fiti yewura Kwame Nkrumah penso ene na chi eye hyehyɛ a mpanyifo aye kwasikɔkɔ eye last 2 weeks papa ekire se omu fa akwanyasa bi begye Africa na Terranalus Terranalios omu fa sa kwan no so begye yen sase na omu kyeche nsase na omu wiye no anso hwa omu be fa yen nkoa eye ne omu be ye nyina omu ye na omu ye systems ede ma yen isan se edu ba bi no na yehu se no omu sisi yen ti magigi yen sase ebu ye kwase a ye se di a ye se ye sorry ampa mpanyifo ni bi sorry eye se ye begye ye hu ye begye ye fa ahodie afi kwasi kokko nsam anu nti ofama ye hu se ye mpanyifo ni bi sorry na omu sorry ye no na omu nim se yade ye ho kra ema ofa yi yewura Kwame Nkrumah yenya independent speech a oma ye na ye ni nyina ne se Africa is capable to manage his own affairs. Now so ni nyina mu no affairs na all kano na ye kwesi kokko na affairs na wahyehyɛ ofama ye hu sɛ waye ne te sɛ akwasi ani akosua oyɛ dan a ni nyina na ye kwasi ada na enti okɔ akosua o okɔ akwasi o kwasi ada na dana na wonamu enti o ma hyehyɛ e de ama yɛn Marxism ene ne ka ho ne socialism oyɛ dan wanfa we abefa we sana Africa mpanyifo ani abre a na omo presa ombegi omo fa ahodie no na sa ne ma we ya nti omo de omo hwe omo din mo de na mo pa bia mo nye ye de be ma mo nanso kwasi kɔ no gilankwantia nti ofama ye hu sɛ in 1960 about 17 African countries within just 1 year period no 17 African countries sorry ye di omo fa ahodie a na omo nim sɛ omo de omo ho ya de omo ho ya omo de omo ho nanso ofama ye hu se fi omo so omo di omo fa hodie ne ma course nyina no ko gina se still na kwasi kokko nhyehyeye na na omo de ye adwuma ofada we nyina di ema ye di sade na tia besi ne eno achi na ye di na eno na ofa akiri mama ya hwe se enti abibiman ye ni ye system bi ye ni bibia ye betumi aya ebe man nti ye mfa kwasi kokko ede enya adwuma bi mu ana eye na wotwe se na ofama ye hu we anu nti NDC MPP we se ono de oye socialist we se ono de capitalist eye omo anu nti ofama ye hu se ni nyina ne ye esikafo bi na wa America no mpese omo control nipa na socialism na anasa capitalism na wo ho no omo pe ni nua bi omo be bata ne ho a oye wa dwen se wo dwane capitalism na obua obesa kwa koto anumu ana kese omoa na omo control bibia we ne hyehyɛ ya nam so a ema asa hyehyɛ nya omo begu kwam se ne be omo benya nipa control wom benkum ana nifa eye omoa na omo di mutintiman na wotwe sende ofa bie so ema yehu ye na Israel enso ba mu ma obekire ma yehu se eno sa system ya na omo fa religion a omo de ba ye no so no omo de nam so ade beje yen ma eniema ye abrabo ne yasetena de ye no omo yi yen fi ni nyina nti okọ capitalism edewu afi nyame ene wankasa wade ye ho socialism okọ religion kese o fa babia na kese enu ama ofa yi ama ye hu se aya Christopher etaka assembly born again na ye say can born again na kese onu de ohu ate oye nipa foforo den for if jama ye hu say ye can born again na eye rituals bia na eye occult group no mo ye na sadin no eye say ye yaw sa rituals ndi wo fa rituals ni mu wia afi wa be ye eba no ene ye di sadin no ema wo we nyina no yakofa abesha asorim saa mo hyehyɛ ye niema nyina na yakofa odi ye di efunu ni nyina fa Israel cheche we nyum nyina anankan kan ade ye ho niema ananke pagya yen se abibiman ma ye koye nim ye nya ya ho ode ni tumi ye tumi nya tumi koye nim no we nyina no yapo akofa niema ensem fata ene ne ye di akire na wotwe se na mpanyifo yi ebie we nyina so ema ye hu ebia na woni fie na nso dwumadi opese wo ka ho ane okọ abefo ntentan so na hwehwe Wake Up Africa GH obetimi aka ye ho na wahwe en live Wake Up Africa GH wo YouTube na Facebook nyina no obetimi ahwe en live saa nso so na matena si fa SMS anase WhatsApp message fa bremi making kind the amount number abefa so no 0206 519335 0206 519335 Pabra na making kind the amount me kodwa man so kakra na fe medidwa kakra ehu hia isan se eye sika na dwumadie ye didi na dwaman so no aye na yewura ye no eye Israel consort na wakofa ahwehweniwa yi de aba edwaman so na ahwehweniwa ni dwumadi a edi kese no eye se esa aniwa yare esa aniwa ne yare mpacho ahwehweniwa we nkofo frɛ me bisa me se ye de kenkan ade ana me pacho ye nkan no ofidie we so da metena da bia na meka me se saa hwehweniwa yi yemfa nkenkan ade na emoma ne ye ahwehweniwa o sha ebesa wani ni yare enti wani na apart from glaucoma apart from say yare a ye fe ni glaucoma no eno pe na ahwehweniwa we entumi nye na sai bia wani no eya na so kekaw na epru nsuo na wani so ayo tum o awia o fa wiem kakra bo nse wani so no na ayo tum eno saa de ahwani wai aye wo dia o de gibi na hye ne da o bakenkan ade na pani abekenkan ade o de ahye ebedu baabi no sha ebedu baabi no be se wani ni awe ma fe ni awo de kenkan ade no kra no o nhye biem enti wei aye ni a abadwa manso o ye no fiwa me fe na busua nchen fa isan se wo hye na wo gi wa yare sa wi a na wayi ato na wo nua bi wo faase bi o nana bi wo papa bi o anti bi o sewa bi na ono so afa na ono so de age na yare sa enu nti eye busua nchen fa Ghana haba bi a wo bia no opusu sa homa we a onsa betumi aka bi eye 0244 888 0244 888 pusu sa homa we na onsa ebetumi aka ahwehwe niwa ibi okay maka ne sa awie no yenko empanyifo ho na ye no madina afi djumadie no ye fa nhye so Israel
Kobi
makwa ba
do so
ji se bia iboko
bia e kama
do gba dia se ofi
Kobi
ova makwa ba
mejo so
minim se ahoden e wo ho pa ye do gba dia se ye do gba dia se ye do gba dia se emi se na wotwe ne ye tena fidie we so no bia nsam mu e kire ama ya bɔ ne tofa na ene premato sei no busua na ye no mu disa adwuma we ne du sabri a isa nsa fidie we so ha ne tase nyansa ye gi nyansa ye pe nyansa fa nyansa enu ntia ya adwuma die abusuafo emfa ni agro kra minim na me ha adwene a o kasa mu a ombebo me pa edi ofa me da adwuma die nda e de ama me da
so Kofi me da se de di ka ye be chia ahwefo nyina
ahwefo eje so
na said na o twa mu no questions any comments miensa
okay
mienu na efa ede be boni nko an ye ya abrofo twen aso sei ena obi nso ebebisa say Pope Francis ne twatro na ba ne sei ena sese o mo say yi another pope tsane me ena me di 3 minutes ebe tiefro do makoma sems
okay
yanko Deuteronomy 28 1 and 2 eye wo mo pese wo hunu se aye bia no ede ben boni ni aye ogbo ade nti a oma asotwe nti se ababe de so Deuteronomy 28 1 and 2
Deuteronomy chapter 28 1 and 2 no I say and it shall come to pass if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. 2. And all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. Of Ampacho, maybe 1 and 2 no.
Verse 15.
Okay, 15 also, I'll say. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
In Deuteronomy 28 1 and 2 no kire say ye di ogbo ade emra na nhihye so a enhira di nhira ebe ba ba mini ye se tu na mom say ye ni so ni ada na ye chima ogbo ade emra na nhihye ya nnome eni apagya edi amaye before da na ye chi edi ma ogbo ade enti no nnome na ba ye so no yanko Deuteronomy 32
Okay.
16 to 21. Deuteronomy 32, 16 to 21.
Deuteronomy chapter 32, 16 to 21. 16 was say, they provoked him to jealousy with strange gods. With abominations provoked they him to anger. They sacrificed unto devils, not to God, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. Of the rock that begat thee thou art unmindful, and hast forgotten God that formed thee. And when the Lord saw it, he abhorred them because of the provoking of his sons and of his daughters. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their ends shall be. For they are a very forward generation, children in whom is no faith. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation.
Nti obo ade enso kan. Madani motiko amamendia. Body provoke me to anger. The idea me so me provoke me to anger. Me de me de mbema enkofo bi kura me mu o mu kura so o mu nipa. No o mu na betwe aso. Eno na di kwasi broni beto ayen ha. Ene no yeni a enam yeso civilization ba wiase no asa de yenim abede kura ena afi obi nhihye ene yatu brika yakudi achi. Na asam no ne kan wuntimi nkan na ekwan bi aso obi nso make comment bi say asam asa de middle de be man class 1 for okay bi say
say asem no emu odupa nti dodo na ntumi nti ase nti no asa ye de
middle class
ye de ma middle class ade a middle class for na ese ye de mom no ye de ma class 1 for nti ne je agina
enya dina asem no se ne asi no saa na ese ye kan no ebize wo ba wiase no di anu se Jesus aba otuko wiem wo kwa akotoa no ho enti ne de ekoso when it comes to economics ne sabi ye dada sitremu abirumu di ato o mu se wo na ebedi o man anim ye benya fa ahudie freedom forever oti ase ese o ya obi ama obedidi ada saa na bi a oti ase nenso wonam eya o mu sesei wonti ase otu aba 4 years bia otu aba uyi aban foforo enso be wi ase no na disappointment enu nti na ye church de asiso aba enti ya ho tire enti no enya middle class ade na American no mintimi nkan class 1 asem say na tie me kan asitis na be wohu enti hu a afi enya onwonwa bi se na esitie enu nti na kasa saa de asi eni eda na dia mu enti se so a yesre wa ekwan ase faso a yeka eni afaso a ye de kan ebi a ye kwa anim no betumi adapt to a style of presentation na fe wati na mas
afa memboa wa omumbra ka okudi school of ka okudi e hode omba ombenya breakdowns
na senyo omunya na tinkran
omomoden
decided here enti baby no ana branch e body message no ba twice musi Pope Francis only last one wogu and the assassin front mo can say osaba bi osaba can the same thing ono so dey make me account no so fi mansun baby enti ono no won ko YouTube wo Black Civilization Leadership the topic here can number 22
okay
on save the data on FIFA for 22 na fi on click answer bia wo pe bia fa ho bia no e be yi ono okay enti match questions ni na fi
okay
ene ye to aso ene die ama abibifo ya hwease e dia besia European ideas na ya so mu ne de ye fisa mum answers na ho ne wo ye de ye no eno ene ye ba ka na ene no won wa mi gina wo mu so ye professors at universities any think tank groups one ma da politicians ama economic problems and answer challenges wo Africa han mu nyina no wo basic economic na akosuaye am refi American education deceptive system no eno na mu nyina mu na mu and you show brilliance kakra as well first class ayo teaching assistant wakoya masters wakoya doctorate no be lecturer ubuzo ni bibi please sounds na think tank groups most of what teach hon mo no now ma traba you borrowing too much edu baabi nso a sa Ghana yetimi ja we ni yetimi ye we a I think ma check mo kasa anytime bi am kasa bi ana nam sa munye sure confidence ni dia mo ka mu no I think I believe yeah about TV so 9 years ago what is I can I believe that because the ever can be no ye na dance here the two ho enti eso ye kasa e na so mo so mo kasa ma da ya che ene no the world global economic and financial ayumu nyina no ye bedanedi woni atro we wakosua no but ukọ underground a wafa koti kwa bi ene wa twetwe homa bi no aya ne ma bi nti wo hye ne nsa the person do ye bia na ode ba be na no ne ye ba be bie so ye bie so ya miako 1910 group of Jews bia ye fra wo First Day Club I'm a Jew for one kosia with JP Morgan Estate our Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia the hono and omo koye say one more the final draft ebe mo omo de system bi a friend of Federal Reserve System edi beba ye di aba be control ewiase economy nyina first idea no so why we Rothschild for Baron Alfred Rothschild ono London ono scheme so idea no eno toma nkofu say munko si adam mobo hu na yenya the final product the information dominate ewiase enyina enu nti wo muso ko Jekyll Island first video
no the birth and power of the Federal Reserve Bank pacho sa video no mu jangu mfama yen umaye hwe sa video no the birth and power of the Federal Reserve Bank.
In November 1910, 7 of the world's richest Jewish men held a secret meeting on Jekyll Island just off the coast of Georgia to establish a central bank, which they called the Federal Reserve Bank. These men were Nelson Aldrich and Frank Vanderlip, both representing the Rockefeller financial empire, Henry Davidson, Charles Norton, and Benjamin Strong, representing J.P. Morgan, and Paul Warburg, representing the Rothschild banking dynasty of Europe. There were some powerful men who made abundantly clear that they were not in favor of the Federal Reserve System. Their total wealth today would be worth nearly $11 billion. These were Benjamin Guggenheim, Isidor Straus, and Jacob Astor. Unfortunately, all of them were on board Titanic when it sank to the depths of the sea. All 3 died that night. By April 1912, all opposition to the Federal Reserve had been eliminated. On December 23, 1913, after many senators and congressmen had left town for Christmas, the President Wilson signed a bill, and the privately owned Federal Reserve System came into being in the United States. After Woodrow Wilson had signed the Federal Reserve Act, which gave private interests control over economic power in 1913, he said, "I am a most unhappy man. I've unwittingly ruined my country. A great industrial nation is now controlled by its system of credit. Our system of credit is concentrated. The growth of the nation, therefore, and all our activities are in the hands of a few men. We have come to be one of the worst ruled, one of the most completely controlled and dominated governments in the civilized world. No longer a government by free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and the vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and endurance of a small group of dominant men." Jewish bankers and their rabbis actually celebrated the passage of the Federal Reserve Act in 1913. After the Federal Reserve was up and running, Charles August Lindbergh added, "The financial system has been turned over to the Federal Reserve Board. The system is private, conducted for the sole purpose of obtaining the greatest possible profits for the use of other people's money." The Federal Reserve System was neither federal, nor does it contain reserves, and nor is it a part of a decentralized system. the adoption of the debt-based financial system preached by Marx in the Communist Manifesto had been accomplished. The current banking system, fractional reserve banking, enables privately owned banks to create money out of thin air. Money today is simply numbers in a computer system, with only about 3% existing as physical currency. Through its control and monopoly of our money, the elite that own the Federal Reserve now have total control over other banks, corporations, money, and politicians. The Fed system is designed to enslave us to never-ending debt and to fool us to believe that our money has any real value, when it is in fact worthless, created out of thin air, based on debt, and backed by nothing. It must enslave humanity to protect its monopoly over credit. Its money-creating tricks enabled Big Brother government to borrow endless money from the Fed. The Fed were now controlled by the Jews, Rothschild, Warburg, and Schiff. Every Federal Reserve chairman since 1980 has been Jewish: Burns, Volcker, Greenspan, Bernanke, and Yellen. The House of Rothschild owns 57% of the stock of the privately held Federal Reserve Bank.
What is the proper relationship, what should be the proper relationship between a chairman of the Fed and a president of the United States?
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take.
The Jew Harold Wallace Rosenthal explained, "Our power has been created through the manipulation of the national monetary system. The Federal Reserve System fitted our plan nicely since it is owned by us, but the name implies that it's a government institution. From the very outset, our purpose was to confiscate all the gold and silver, replacing them with worthless, non-redeemable paper notes. We, Jews, have put issue upon issue to the American people. Then we promote both sides of the issue as confusion reigns. With their eyes fixed on the issue, they fail to see who is behind every scene. We Jews glory in the fact that the stupid Goy have never realized that we are the parasites, consuming an increasing portion of production, while the producers are continually receiving less and less." We have to understand that one of the most powerful tools the globalists have for profit and control is war. The most lucrative thing that can happen for the international bankers and the globalists is war, for it forces the country to borrow even more money from the Federal Reserve Bank.
Wake Up Africa, Royal Television, so now me yam crash me. It's an say, any patrimosum video no chire kwanya nam so a Federal Reserve buy na of a kind nipa bi eteki decision no mko boko share ba bi ko bopo kwan on be fa so o mo di sa sika no on be control nipa kakra bi sika be ye o mo di ahye o mo nsem no mo no be control sika anunti o hwe epo no mbo ye na tam o mo ye se o be di Federal Reserve no be ba na asika fo miensa bi a no mo so mo sika na ko be timi abosa de na gu asori atia no o mo fa kwanyina sa nyina build Titanic video ne kire yen se e ma sa nkrofo miensa no mo fa sa Titanic ne so eyi o mo fi wiase eno ne ma o mo kwan a o mo timi di Federal Reserve buy na Federal Reserve no trimopo na adwempo nyina ne se sika ye fe ne sika menu mie ne ye kura ne sei no aye paper na obehu ana kwan na obehu no ye se sika aye 3% pe ni aka ne nyina ye figures numbers ani na mu wiem eni patrimo din o e se na nipa po sika ho aye che se sika nti ye nua ene ye wo ye wiase yi mu ena o ma fa sa sika kwan we so ena ne o ma nipa ya kwa ena ye bre sika kwan o mo fa so o mo de buy no just to control nipa nyina enti sika enya de bia ya de ese over
and what we want to do Sana Bank eduma no esitie hard cash I will bring be there to butum no any more than 5%. Because ya kan nyina akwa bobisia no say egbu din no na egu computer figures any agbo egu ho emframa ya 3% we yi kakra de ama go physics card ho enti no kotem bia ubenya bank scheme no is scam na so yenya ntiase enti da be sorry ya ewiase ye dey demonstration ko ba bia what is ya demonstration at bank da
Dabi
nka kom ne beku
of all kakro kan yo o kan wo mu ase sika no omo hihye na o maye no aban bia ni ho betimi asori ati asade no ti wo ye den wo sem sa na o de control
enti anu a na je se o de aye adwuma amento amasanzo because be di akiri mu a ebeji membre nso me the time na aye adwuma enti se na video no kan aye no 23 December sabra na politicians bronya bebenti no congressmen bebre anko binum ye shopping binum namha saada no pushi sa bill no e de confirm and one de kwa no those in support say hi yang jang butanga say we ya say oh yeah we President Woodrow Wilson okay enumere be 6:30 and e koto na nim na we o say e dey about into law into the Federal Reserve sabre na First World War epeja bantina private bankers yi pesika e the war equipment accommodating ni allies yi ho nti say ni abenya control ni dia everything ya pushi dem ma we nyina nom dia e ma wie no Wilson ohun sa waye mistake pa enya no ho asem na me kan sisi na Federal Reserve no buy no enu na eba be control credit any money in the American system enti no ade ba ko a eda wo mo ani sunu say wo mo ba be alternative the friend inflation eye boom and a deflation eye bust and recession ni mienu na cheso mbeye enti ya ni amasika no ho ya din kakra na chese recession aba na ada na nema enu so e the profit ba saa so no mo inflation ba boom the inflation no be ba no ene se bank zo masika bi na wa hodi kan so betua osika ko fasika no wo hin anya saa ye jo niema eno inflation adi boom na every bank no enye wo omo ye bi 1929 Great Depression bae enu bi no mo ye na ebedu ho ye be kan enu ho asem na ya to so na de akọ enti we say no bae no agitu mu no enu omo che America United States of America into 12 Federal Reserve districts ana Federal Reserve Bank na wo New York no ono ye overseer omo hwe all other banks no senior esi eti hodum na the same year 1913 no and omo ye say dabi ye sika na ye de ba no e private money o enti no sa na tie dia ye mbesi sika no beba na be hye enti no ye pe guarantee workers guarantee enti no ye be ya ye ma system bi mra se ne ye be di tax ne dia ya guarantee dia be tax kana yenso ya de be ma aban no na cheza be sa year no e no de IRS enso buy no de IRS no buy no wo mo ya say se ma adwumaye ni bia tua tax na tax na veggie no eno ne de kwa kotua interest sika na de bebo aban bisia no eno ne beba ba ye interest a ye de workers tax no so e ba betua enti no se ye ne saade a na chese bibia ni eno mo ya say IRS so say money to me wa metua it mi sizi uniema wa metua ye be tumi do akọ kura ene niema na ye bia no ye kọ ni ye be hu say legal ana say enye legal enti o mo di buy na say no me book bi o ye ba be kan ahwe sa IRS asem no ye nko hwe first picture
okay your first picture no here. Does the Vatican hold your mortgage? A question no bisa. The greatest story never told by William Thomas, page 11. Move us a picture into some for my.
And you be kind had a rabbit, I doesn't do the kind, meaning I be seen picture and national kind. Yeah, the Federal Reserve Act.
But of picture now, that's no. Who book na ye kind? Does the Vatican hold your mortgage? The greatest story never told by William Thomas. Okay, ni page 7. And ye can. Also, the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve Act was created by in London by Baron.
Why you preacher on Konechi?
The Federal Reserve Act was created in London by Baron Alfred Rothschild, left, whose family crest is the red shield. Its final draft was decided at a secret meeting of heavy financial hitters held at JP Morgan's Jekyll Island estate in Georgia. Among those present were Senator Nelson Aldrich, Assistant Secretary of the Treasury, Paul Warbeck, and several senior officials of JP Morgan's banks. Secrets of the Federal Reserve. Okay. Hold on. Advises J. Edward Griffin, author of The Creature from Jekyll Island. We had the Morgans, the Rockefellers, Kahn, Loeb, and Company, the Rothschild and the Warbecks. These were the major competitors in the field of investment and banking in those days. These were the giants. Prior to this period, they were beating their heads against each other, blood all over the battlefield, fighting for dominance in the financial markets of the world. And here they are sitting around a table coming to an agreement of some kind. What's going on here? They came together completely and decided not to compete. They formed a cartel to print money, collect taxes, and charge interest to the US government and other borrowing banks on loans made from nothing. With his extensive European banking savvy, Warbeck was the most knowledgeable banker in the group, voicing the Jesuit agenda. This non-ordained cohort will later tell the Senate, we shall have world government, whether or not we like it. The only question is whether world government will be achieved by conquest or consent. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
Enti ye wo mu ni say ekwan wo mu say the Federal Reserve aba. But nhwehwe mu am ya hu say emre bia ni America e kire say America buntua tax or income. Bebe kan wo ha. Say your evidence. Ghana politicians sorry eto no ajiji no eno ne edi yi akwan eno ne edi yi school eno edi yi nam kan say hu do rather eno e be evidence no. Second video no here. Federal Reserve and IRS. Pacho sa video no umaye sa video no.
Home in 1913. Nail in the coffin of the sovereignty of the American people was hammered home in 1913 with the passing of the Federal Reserve Act. The Federal Reserve Act gave yet another private bank the right to print all of America's money, created from nothing, and loan that money to the government at interest. This act was voted into law on December 23rd, while most of the elected officials were in their home states with their families for the Christmas holiday. That same year, the Internal Revenue Service was established to collect a constitutionally illegal unapportioned income tax, which would pay for the interest on the debt incurred by the government. With these two institutions in place, the machinations to enslave all Americans were turned on, right under the noses of what has become an increasingly unaware public. Federal income tax is unconstitutional, and has been ruled so by the Supreme Court in multiple cases. Yet most Americans are compelled to pay, through a campaign of intentional duress, propagated and perpetuated by the Internal Revenue Service and other compliant agencies, including America's law enforcement agencies, courts, and its intentionally under and even misinformed juries.
Payday. Payday. Yes, payday. Millions of dollars pouring into the hands of the American worker. Now in the mind of the average worker live two separate personalities. One, the thrifty.
Wait a bit, laddie. You're going to save a bit of that, aren't you?
Oh, sure.
Oftentimes, idle money burns a hole in your pocket, which brings out the other personality, the spendthrift.
Hi, big shot. Come on with me. I'll show you how to spend your dough. I got a couple of good dates.
But, laddie, I've got some better dates.
Important ones, too. When every American should pay his or her income tax gladly and proudly.
The lives of countless Americans are destroyed every year and their property stolen by an unconstitutional agency. And this is not only being ignored, but rather it is encouraged by the government. Let us examine the banking system in America, which is only one case in point of how the banks and their puppet governments have manipulated citizens to the point where they have become perpetual debt slaves. In the USA alone, it was determined by the presidentially sanctioned Grace Commission during the Reagan administration in 1983 that all of the income tax in the United States of America, that which they can account for, of course, since a hell of a lot goes missing, goes solely to pay the interest on the national debt. Interest, which is nothing but pure profit for the criminal banksters who own our central bank. Not a penny in federal taxes goes to fund any sort of governmental projects or programs. The funding for all governmental projects and programs in the United States of America comes from loans borrowed from the federal bank, which means a bigger debt every year, and of course, more interest on that debt.
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions.
Yeah, Sabri, shall Wake Up Africa, Royal Television, so now video we train Trimupa Omunya ya Omuti sa a Federal Reserve no, and ye IRS no edeka ho. Ni nyina ne se ye de begin krofo sika omo kire se sika ye ka ho asem no e ka bia ni omo twa sika no omo mmoka bia nanso omo gbo omo twa sika no wi a na omo de ama bank for loan omo de ama aban loan na omo de be ma wo no interest wo ho interest na wo ho no e na omo se aban no jijiji tax na fa betua loan no e ho ka enti na ga se in America no system a omo to omo so no e na omo pia ma wiase nyina ntimi bisa wo se abibi man ne anim we nyina e na ye de yenkosie ma yenso ye bi no na ga se loan na ye gigin taxes na ye gigin wo ye man mu no ye gigisi ye de ye bibi ajapade bia wo ye man nimu ana ye de boa developing o man no ne mum ye de a in America system na omo create ye no ye de tax na ye de kwa kotua loan no omo de ama ye no IMF wo ya ne akọ World Bank ne akọje ne akọ IMF ne akọje sa loan na omo de mama ye no Japan for no mama ye loan China for no mama ye loan no sa loan no omo de mama ye no eno ho no manti no omo share say ye ntua tax enti tax ne ye ne ye de kwa kotua enye loan ni mpoka o ne mum loan no ho interest no ene ye de kwa kotua enti je say ye wo akola ketekete kra Ghana ni odeka US odeka e kada ne so medase
enti Federal Reserve aya na yankofo bebre se o ya aban dia ya aban agency senia Alan Greenspan okasa aya okan say wo decision bi obeteki bia no other government agency can overrule it enti quasi government image bi. If you say US president, one will appoint the chairman and then the vice chairman, and a US Senate and a ma approval. And to change our when I say a buying institution, we are totally private. Oh, but can be book we will yes, final warning: a history of the New World Order, Chapter 2. Financial backing, the beginning of monetary control.
Okay.
And to the other kind of plain and simple. Everybody see her. Don't go beyond it.
Okay. Yo. If I tell book na offer ebo din ema ono. Final warning: a history of the New World Order, Chapter 2. Financial background, the beginning of monetary control. Yo. Ne sabukunu ena offer bi ama yense yenka. I say plain and simple. The Federal Reserve is not part of the federal government. It is a privately held corporation owned by stockholders. That is why the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and all the others is listed in the Dun and Bradstreet Reference Book of American Business, Northeast Region 1. Manhattan, Bronx. According to Article 1, Section 8 of the, according to Article I, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, only Congress has the right to issue money and regulate its value. So it is illegal for private interest to do so. Yet it happened, and because of a provision in the Act, the Class A stockholders were to be kept a secret and not to be revealed. R.F. McMaster, who published a newsletter called the Ripper through his Swiss and Saudi Arabian contacts, was able to find out which banks held a controlling interest in the reserve. 1. The Rothschild Banks of London and Berlin. 2. Lazard Brothers Bank of Paris. 3. Israel Moses CF Bank of Italy. 4. Warburg Bank of Hamburg and Amsterdam. 5. Lehman Brothers Bank of New York. 6. Kahn, Liob and Co. of New York. 7. Chase Manhattan Bank of New York. 8. Goldman Sachs of New York. Of Ambacho Mary. And
who say a private entity. Even though president and a nominated chairman and then the vice, now Senate am approval. Entirely private. You have a next video.
Okay. Your next video no abodi adaso no Federal Reserve. Pacho mama yen hwesa video no. Federal Reserve.
One century later, a corrupt U.S. Congress committed the biggest theft in world history. They passed Paul Warburg's Federal Reserve Act in 1913, handing over America's gold and silver reserves and total control of America's economy to the Rothschild banksters. Most Americans still believe that the Fed, or Federal Reserve, is the government. It is not. The Fed is a privately owned banking system whose majority Class A shareholders are the Rothschilds, Warburgs, Kuhn and Loeb, J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, Israel Seif, and the Lehman Brothers. This private banking cartel is the Fed and is never audited and never pays taxes. They print and design America's money, which displays their symbols of an Egyptian pyramid, a Masonic all-seeing eye, and the words "In God We Trust." Who exactly is the God they trust? They also collect American taxpayers' money through the IRS. Then they loan it back again with interest to pay for roads, bridges, and other public. 1 century later, a corrupt U.S. Congress committed the biggest theft in world history. They passed Paul Warburg's Federal Reserve Act in 1913, handing over America's gold and silver reserves and total control of America's economy to the Rothschild banksters. Most Americans still believe that the Fed or Federal Reserve is the government. It is not. The Fed is a privately owned banking system whose majority Class A shareholders are the Rothschilds, Warburgs, Kuhn and Loeb, J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, Israel Seif, and the Lehman Brothers. This private banking cartel is the Fed and is never audited and never pays taxes. They print and design America's money, which displays their symbols of an Egyptian pyramid, a Masonic all-seeing and the words in God we...
Aye, Federal Reserve no niema ewo wo so. A chese ni nyina ne se IRS na omo create ye no. Sa yesika na omo je no, se ye de service loan no. Omo je a na omo san abeye omo faso na omo san de ye loan. Asan de amayen. Hey, amanfo am krofo we bu ye kwase. Ofa mba che omaba.
Enti Uposo who said Federal Reserve, almost American government were addicted to budget deficit. In the year, the Biania per se increasing spending, the Asabi Congress, Musa Chasika from a honor Federal Reserve. And the Sikana best spending over country, they making available for you. They bet you any paper, any ink. Any treasury navy a year war about treasury no have a war by and say 1 billion no be to face value interest. Let us say we a worker who na fi ohun be kom e de atua ma. The koba say sika wo mu issue wo fie bia wo dollar bia fa na hwesoro. Note ya trust say Federal Reserve note. Sika wo mu print no Federal Reserve wo adwuma wo ye no. And you're backed by anything apart from say a car and a back $1 no a di shape to a car and you did back and your silver and your gold and so any muntino if it's American dollar is sika bia esu bi mada ye be hu ba bi free a e be sika kese hwe so embark you hear next picture
no here. Does the Vatican hold your mortgage?
Picture.
Oh, okay. For picture I'm making.
Michael.
Oh, okay. Michael Jenner. Okay. Michael Jenner, January, February 1988. Federal Reserve note. Bank debt money created by the Federal Reserve. This $5 bill is a sample of the money printed by the Federal Reserve. On the top, it is written Federal Reserve note, and it has a green seal. But our Mufasa picture no.
Okay, that's all. And there debt money, gold and tertiary, silver and tertiary, name a car, and a tertiary. Send you sit here. Next picture near
Michael Jenner, April 1989. America's greatest problem is debt money system, the corrupt Federal Reserve Corporation.
And when they by this arrangement, and almost taking control over American economy. So the system about they go global. Then they say as a so bia boka. It is a cabo and you see a sika. What the car is sika na wo nche and how did the car. Unya sika na wo nche and unti Federal Reserve system no by in such a way say send your tie bia no we are mayo we are individual we are why and so the car. And then the credit card system, and never would on credit. And now the buy, and when on establish a central bank, Hana, central bank, baby, Mubiano, a Juma, Wamu Yen say, Wamu promote debt money system. se Ghana ho aburuchiro ehifo Oko bank akobo busia oko bank central bank dey adwuma ne so promote debt money system. You hear a video to us.
The video to us no here. Central bank and commercial banks create debt which is money. Video sa video mo here.
So things are already pretty crazy, but they get even crazier. The more you look into it, the stranger things become. So remember how we're talking about how central banks and commercial banks can create money out of nothing? This procedure actually does create something. It creates debt. Let me explain. When you take out a loan, it's written down as an asset in the bank as a negative form, kind of like a negative value of money, or otherwise known as debt. Under this system, debt is actually money. And again, don't just listen to me. Marina Eccles, former governor of the Federal Reserve, states, quote, "If there were no debts in our money system, there wouldn't be any money." So in essence, instead of gold being the backbone of our economy, it's now debt. The system we're under now is sometimes referred to as the debt-based monetary system. It requires that debt always grows. Countries and people must become deeper in debt so that there's more money in the system, because remember, debt is money. If people and governments stop borrowing money and pay back loans, the debt doesn't grow, the money supply shrinks, and the system falters. It truly is bizarre, but we all live in this system each and every day.
Africa, me yama simio, say commercial bank you kura onu ni jumadi a odi anu no. Bank of Ghana. Enu nti ni create no. Ni jumadi a odi anu so be make sure say Ghana tem bia de ka. Eye ade o hye o ma sato ne so opewo sana Bank of Ghana obo ne bra. Ti bank bia na aka bia no eno mo di so. Over, pacho baba.
Enti sani American. Sikano ya gold ne silver church senka sika bia no back by sani e man. Aya na official money mo a na nka Goldsmith fo. Nkofo gold no. So de ebetu ana mo akwa konfo kobu no dia na asante ohun Goldsmith ana de akosi ho. O se mama krata bi na mfa nkonse me wo worth this gold weight. Na no no dey any transaction. And obi an ya tran na mfa gold ni me. No so ma krata enu mu na dey check system eni baby e dey abedu sese e bai. Enti sese no 1933 ana President Roosevelt edin hihye bi ba sese no Federal Reserve o mu sika no o ma print bebre enti na sa na tie dia America ni bia wo gold coin, America ni bia wo gold certificate, America ni bia wo gold bullion. Fako the nearest Federal Reserve Bank. Now I'm found Connie Chiwa. You ever find $10,000? And yes, I'll be jail 10 years. Uti anye ya ni mi nyina. Uti nipa nyina so a wo msike. Gold, silver ni yelo. E dey come Federal Reserve for the obo local do kija. Abi di ensep. Na sabre no no mo de Great Recession ni buy. Omo manipulating New York stock. And a be crashy. Enti a crashy here no. Na it say, enti dey na na bank for say wa wo dika bia wa metu aye je oniema. Hey!
Eni man zo wo mo sem.
En go more committee suicide. Na dey. To mo ya am say, ena no wo mo masika me enfa ni dwa enfa nye business. Na mom, on be for business na dey ato military uniform. Enti na say aban ba mu. Na aban ba mu no, ena je say, o ya say na mo supply military we and sika kakra ba system. It is sabe na Federal Reserve are printing millions of dollars backed by nothing and then go to go so enem. Enti yanko Roosevelt samaka emra o signing sa
order no
executive order no New York Times the buy.
I say the New York Times 6 March 1933 Roosevelt orders 4-day bank holidays, puts embargo on gold, calls Congress. What's a picture no into some for mommy? Afanami bisa say, like I say, Osha, Satrimupowe, ade omudi di nyawo asay achese ama ene bank ne de yese ya ene bank
na me ka say university lecturers ne think tank groups and trouble na mutual government
ha bisa so far adentina oman bi akora ntimi ntwa ne sika wo se asem no ye mbisa wo
say ne system no na ayesa
wo de wo ho a ta wo se
area asem no ya hear next picture
the next picture no under the executive order of the president executive order 6 executive order 6102 me ba cha mo fasa ayin into so picture into so mami
da ho enti na say wo gold coin gold certificate gold bullion one bank of Federal Reserve for near Chiwa and the eno so eno no enti no eno ma gold ni silver near yin na no e could di Federal Reserve will when July 1944 sabre no second world war no so enemu dindindin sabre no de ba ne say America e can so man miss opportunity be to control the world. That was the first world war. Mukoshia was Paris peace treaty no and we can say ye establishing the League of Nations send on bekwa ko share no ma control we ase and our Senate and ratify and the share sinti Woodrow Wilson Colonel Mandela House wom dia reho ni fi Paris akwa America wom say yesua yenyansa next time bia opportunity be sa ba biem for a world war no say entokwani nsi no na America na dominate nti wom set ya 5 committees ye planning war eba dey na ebe ya e betu control we are seeing now one of the committees was the Economic and Financial Committee and no meeting in 1944 730 representatives from 44 allied countries Kushia Mount Washington Hotel Brenton Woods New Hampshire to approve an Anglo-American monetary system say world war no endia na wiase no bedi ho a de ebe ne say the two international bodies IMF and World Bank eba senior one country's currencies exchange rate near IMF na behwe no so now World Bank so ebehwe to the development of ewiase especially baby omuhia moa near let's say ya di akọ and the World Bank buy here next picture
your next picture no year Daily Graphic 9th October 2004 60 years of IMF World Bank and epoch of economic reign or ruin move that picture into so my
and the result say at that time na World Bank enya 60 years ewo asase su no kan say aye bia mo ba ye no o ma ba bua na say o ma ba ye say ye yanko the next picture na be kan bibi kakra bi
next picture near Daily Graphic 6 March 2006 World Bank IMF support for the economy but o mo fa picture na to so my okay
and the be kan first 2 paragraphs Ghana they call IMF 1960
Yo, Daily Graphic, Monday, March 6, 2006. World Bank, IMF support for the economy. I say, the World Bank has been Ghana's partner in development since 1960, when the country assessed $47 million for the Akosombo Dam project at Akosombo. To date, the bank has provided assistance to 155 projects focused on helping the country to promote economic growth and reduce poverty.
And you know, first time Ghana you call World Bank goes to Sika 19 say
about 1960.
Oh you are.
I see ne. No. I'm also poverty you reducing no.
Sir. Brenton Woods meeting yasi and say ya hwemu hunu say sika bia ni wiase a o wa hoden chen dollar nti anu nti no dollar ene de bedi edwa dollar ene de behwe so exchange a country's currency value nti ene no wa wutie de ne dollar cost ro say de ho che dollar say baby free ni 1944 na edi tu mu say dollar ene wa hoden ayebia na ye no kre anasa nye no kre. Your next picture.
The next picture no trilateralism, economics and politics in the 1970s, page 65.
Over kind BB or her, page 65 for no.
Okay.
At the center, over kind room baby, a hand baby, memo jai.
Yo.
And the kind at the center.
But trilateralism, book dankasa na mikrei. Yeah. I say at the center of the international monetary solar system shone the dollar. Around it orbited the various national currencies. Their relationship to each other was fixed, defined by their relations to the American sun. International transactions were carried out almost exclusively in dollars. This was fine so long as the sun was the largest and most stable body in the system.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next picture.
Next picture no trilateralism. IMF and Jamaica. IMF origins. Page 468.
Overcoming a house and
okay. Okay. Sabukuna mu trilateralism. Bukuna page 468. I say IMF origins. The Bretton Woods Agreement of 1944 accomplished an overhaul of the older international monetary system. The existing gold standard was not totally abolished, but each of the major industrial nations agreed to defend the value of its currency by industrial nations. Each of the major industrial nations agreed to defend the value of its currency by various domestic, economic, and monetary measures. National currencies' values were no longer allowed to adjust themselves automatically in relation to world trade. The US dollar was clearly the strongest and most stable currency, and it quickly became the practical day-to-day surrogate for gold as the standard for international currency exchange. Other currencies were readily convertible into dollars and vice versa. This situation of convertibility continued until the early 1970s.
Next picture.
Okay. Next picture, no, I say the dollar. What currency is it? Mufasa eno ento so enfamaye. Okay. Where so the dollar and what currency it is. Okay. The dollar, what currency is it? The American dollar is worshipped globally because of its deliberate and strategic position in world trade transactions. It was enshrined as an international reserve currency for use in settlement of debt and the conduct of international trade because it was the strongest and most stable currency.
Yeah, next video.
Okay.
Sharp.
Yo. Your next video no central banks no Fed and central banks. Most fast video no engumaye.
Called the Bretton Woods system was created. All US dollars were backed by and exchangeable for gold. A byproduct of this was that currencies used to be very stable in relation to each other.
For that, all the countries, the exchange rates were fixed, and year after year you could predict what prices were going to be. You could start a business elsewhere, know if you were, you could calculate profits. Business was much, much easier before floating exchange rates.
Unfortunately, in 1971, due to a falling US dollar, international capital flows into gold, and the funding of the Vietnam War, President Nixon took the US dollar off the gold standard.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets.
Now the dollar was floating and backed by nothing, and has been ever since. Okay, so let's think a little. If the US dollar is backed by nothing, but the world's reserves are backed by the US dollar, intrinsically, since 1971, doesn't this mean that all currencies are now backed by nothing tangible, only trust in the American government? Well, this is correct. Money backed by nothing is known as fiat currency. Fiat in Latin means let it be done. In other words, the government says it is money, so it is. A consequence to having money backed by nothing is that whenever the Federal Reserve creates money, it dilutes the currency supply of all other nations because their reserves are backed by the US dollar. All countries' reserves are worth less each time money is created. In the past few years, the Federal Reserve has printed trillions of dollars, and countries like Russia and China have noticed this. As a reaction to the money printing, these countries have been selling US dollar reserves and buying gold over the same period.
Oh, Royal Television, so now bank sika ye kan wasem sika ye aye kan o beti aye si o sika no backed by gold and amanti sika no omo chese sika no is backed by nothing sika na nada huruduvura dasem and na chese ye dia dada ye ho a besi ne aye dasukuram ovambate o midase
enti sasa tie dia ye hwe next picture dollar is backed by nothing, you know. It is a next picture here
the dollar. What currency is it?
Okay.
Then public agenda, 3rd April 2006. Dollar power controls Ghanaians as credibility of the CD waves. Mufasa picture neto so for my. And that
Ghana, Yabagi dollar is too much. America is backed by nothing. Next picture.
Daily Graphic, 3rd January 2007. Dollar still a reserve currency. Pacho Mufasa picture neto so my.
Enti one success in America, a Federal Reserve. I don't know what you say. Sadia, yeah, the IMF, any World Bank, a pillars in global economic development. Now, the ever tax on Mamo, say, one extend the debt money system, you know, into developing countries. Sanya, up and coming economies in Yinano, yede eka, ebe so womo mini, nye mia womo, nye timia control. Enunti nene, baby abefebia, Africa yedika, Ghana yedika, Nigeria yedika, eka na mini yen. Na die, think tank groups entiminka, emye huni history ya yafemui. Ena abani borrow too much. Yes, I know. Yentimi, and sustain repayment and one amoka and through saying a mucha. Mummy, who the ecoso economically in the world. Yashadani ya create say, so man be a bedika. Send ye vinya coin, near control. And IMF New World Bank, Ghana Yakobe 17 times. Ediventia, Ediakon Aquacushi. Enti oba de me ahoden next week no ene e be hwe Africa debt eni achiri hunsem enti be person de manu be si ha na kwakunso anya kwan e de representation ba that's
over ya busuane da wase papa ofa se aha eno de ne de no esi ye nsemmere kra mere no ekọ papa enti ye kọ ye nua Israel ho street signs ono so wa charge pa wa ye charge aba ye delay e be ha ye Israel Misamu akwa babiem. Ujiri se bibia eboko. Dobo ade ase. We de yen semre kra, ye jadwuma de no de ama wo. Na afi ne wo ho no wo de ama ye.
Yo, metia
afefo eje wo so.
Sene ofa e kan. We wonu mu a. E kan so dem.
Onya bi.
E kan mosque. E kan himfie.
E mudu o. Isam no e mudu papa.
Asem mo no ma yen kan himfie. And kind of central mosque.
Very.
And now you know I saw them so.
Chapel them. Yeah.
If you are so, about for the way you are so, the beginning bed day, when you and found from down.
Now you are no.
Yeah. On my planet, I'm Brunia planet.
Hi.
Say, person control you are saying. And then one day, here, so they are, and some of your canoe, you know, Bruni originally. Say, you near Brea, which was the double for no. You who fast so I'm young to control you, I say, yes, you to me, no. But you know, I don't double, you know, I'm sorry. And you could say, a baby, the machine come about baby, when I do now, I want to walk. Nti yeni mre Asia fo no omoni abre Africa yada
hwe book papa yi kan intellectualism asori dem ahe na book ni nie book ni nie asori dem ahe na befa book ya to
o kana no eso boa
o ka kra ye bebo
o boa
book we o ka do ya kan
hwe ade ya bi kumi meche ade bi African for yasam ya reho
papa
o kana kura no wo ni fi hwe odin so boa on kana kura ja nso no yekoso no eno na onim abafro ba no ohu se African for sibesi be to control African for dia e wo se ye de nima bi beto madwunu o ko pe oba o kana kwa che oba na oba no ntie
ontie
thank you ise wo tudu kuwa
but na dream chere sana
sana broni oya before wan kana kwa nche ena do baka che no ena ekura mu saa broni ba ase no obaka che se ade bia no krom no oya no krom no eno na abo wo mo komanim mutse de yewo broni ba Africa no obaka che se African foi ahimfoi hwamoi ade amana me krom no e na ebo ame bitum ko ban manim ba sa ko nim dia iso suame tinepa oba ye no yesi bia ye to kakao ne we bibia ye ahimfo edi djuma obi ye bibi obu hu se da bi so wontumi an kan chana fe ye ntumi anfa ntu adwumu a omedi gugu to mo ka se ade a me krom no meye no yakudo machi opportunity dia ese ekuo no obadwane bi obi aye di hweme ana ese saa ise ko dwane secret court no good ana ya aboa yen African for but makomanum dia ese mo dwane bi
that time so ne yakoya nim
yakoya nim
isan say yen ne man ne ya ye no
ene ko tie omo ahemfo ko tie omo asafo ko tie omo bu oman ko tie omo businessmen ko tie omo say petumi a betumi de wuru nipa me Facebook menche tam no ko secret societies Africans way forward from the summer
yo mo fa sa book na to so emfa mayen secret society
bro say
Africa's way forward
ade ama no krom okonanim huhumu onamu okonanim mo wadwene court bi a aboa no spiritually physically into African for metuma kwenu mu a entumi nwane sai ko ne bi ena wano no
ene nani baako
wona ade a bonu de bra yen say yen som na fi fa ne genya djuma kome ode ba yen so empenifo dia so no o ma ne je ho media wom ahemfuom businessman wom ana position so de e ka ho bi o chuma nka ho okure ni nka ho
deva ni nka ho
Messi ni nka ho Taylor ni nka ho e pedipa wo mu abobra What shame? It's no. Yeah. Yeah. We do it now. Until son order. It's no mobile. Mobile no. I'm can say sa court we say no. Good. But we go more into country. Obo shame dia. Obo to me. I'm a fan of spiritual Magna Carta. Power to rule people. Yeah. Obi a businessman. Oja to me what to look ayi na juma. Na ko dwene. Ohene nana obi ade obi to me na ko dwene. Politician oja to me na ko dwene. Media oja to me na ko dwene. Ntemafo binu no afansa kwa sore. So unko bi Bejane, ohe to me nko ade a bejane any connections
benya links na
on the buy African for embrace here to Yankopon there out now to me say court we say move for Yankopon no I don't know you can embrace na hade aboche hima Queen of England wow the back king that is so na King Charles no Prince Charles no you friend Diana mamenu wuya na nipa na otema mamenu chen a oboabo wo mu ase poku dan kwane Israel kwaku ye mami mamenu wuya pe na media for so obi sama mamenu questions then papa I didn't na mamenu wuya and a queen of Fred man say Paul Bla no say media for Eben Ben hweye na meka free sabuku no mu obekan kan ye yeah
yo
man no for the Paul
okay
ono na obe queen
okay
Paul kwa ha Paul you say peni bia wa kwala
obe no
osoma no good enti no mamene wo ya pe Diana wo ya pe na media for Chasa mo ben Diana Paul no Chasa mo mamene ka che Paul
okay book na ye to so no Secret Societies Africa's Way Forward aha ne page Fabi na ye kan no I say Princess Diana's famous butler Paul Barrel the hub around which her post-divorce life revolved, who worked for the British royal household for 21 long years, is the man who revealed in 2002 that the Queen called him one day after Diana's death and told him, "Be careful, Paul. Nobody has ever been as close to a member of my family as you were to Diana. There are powers. There are powers at work in this country about which we have no knowledge."
Queen Akasomo
Queen Ankasa na Akasomo. Ono fra brand.
To me be.
Ewo ye man mu.
Ewo man mu a me ye hema akrampo no.
Minim hu ni minim hu hwe mi ntimi hwe na ti a mi hu no.
Ade abofo no omde bu man no. No South African for ye mfa ye hu hwe be boa yen. Ene hwe abama afa ewo school su nyina. Uko campuses a January was a Christian, Freemason, round table, no way, no rumor, and no more moyano. Emma, I'll ho. And to my mamma, I say, I say, to me be a control, you say. Nakome, for me,
maybe a crowd having I say, that was heavy stuff. If the Queen has no knowledge of the powers at work in a country of which she is head of state, imagine the effort these powers, read secret societies or puppet masters, have made to hide their existence and sometimes dangerous activities from public view.
Thank you.
I say this is heavy.
Yeah,
heavy stuff for Queen Ankasa not to have knowledge of ekuo bi a omo ye niema wa ne man ni ma onim ba bi omo fini kwan omo ye omo niema de a
onim
like I say ano odin
onim hwe oboye mampani bi aya obebe president kwaku mesan kwan on to me ntwene kwaku obabe PRO komi obabe zei
sa
oboye mampani a o sada o si select ne nkofo owo ko bi mu a ne nkofo no wo mu no yi wo mu muntie ne ye pa oboye no na sofo na oni ko no mu on fere no hwade etumi frɛ obi bɛyɛ mampani yɛato abama no bɛbɛ mampani ɔwɔ media no mo yɛ adwuma ɛyɛ court a ɔno wɔ mu dada na wafrɛ wɔ mo
okay
start top no
yes start here
yeah
okay. The same book na mo
yɛfrɛ obi Reagan
yeah
ɔbɛ mampani
yeah
eboa
yeah
tie
I say yet when Reagan entered the White House out of the 59 people he appointed to his administration 28 were CFR members.
What's it?
10 were Bilderbergers.
On CFR?
Yeah.
A Council on Foreign Relations. On your court.
On court, yes.
Until obi na obi penia. Oyin kakao. Ohwe nkofo a no mo badwuna bom. No mo one court mu no yi wo mo. I say I don't know man a good parent am penia fa no.
Oh. He don't belong. He doesn't belong.
Maybe,
sir.
Sir,
I say, yet when Reagan entered the White House, out of the 59 people he appointed to his administration, 28 were CFR, Council on Foreign Relations members. 10 were Bilderbergers, and another 10 from the TC. When George Bush Senior, CFR and TC succeeded Reagan, his top appointment was solid CFR Condoleezza Rice, CFR Dick Cheney, CFR Brent Scowcroft,
yes,
CFR Colin Powell, CFR.
Yeah, a black man.
Yo.
Yeah.
Paul.
So we are now Condoleezza Rice.
Okay.
Paul Wolfowitz, and also CFR. Just say, remember, so you see what we need.
I buy Mampania.
Yente Bill Clinton, so I won't call for Omunyina ya ni chronic members.
Every tear say, I play stadium. I say, come on, I'm a fan.
Yeah. Oh, he doesn't belong. Yente Clinton, so way.
Yeah.
Yente Clinton, so.
Obi on Tima, no more Juma.
Onomoko. Yente Clinton.
But we don't quite good though. So I can pay my part to the pa.
David, Obwa.
Opa time sensation. Odi atom. Nothing abano, amfano. Hey. David. Onka ho. Tie.
When Bill Clinton, CFR, became president, review Bennett and Gaines, he brought on board even more CFR members than Bush. Than Bush had. 16 members of his cabinet were from CFR, including women. In 2004, when George Bush Jr. and George Kerry contested the presidency, the Skull and Bones had a field day as both were members. Kerry additionally held CFR membership. The Bush is not CFR. He yet surrounds himself with CFR members.
When you say, Edna Bruni or the Bunumai, almost secret court, Bibli, Freemasons, Bibli,
round table.
Yeah. And until say, Obabaya, Omampenia.
Club of Rome.
Make sure say on call for no me secret court no. On over form no more boomer no. Enti adom ye no say abom papa. Ti Africa for in na chase no. Wajima no. Any. Omo kan e man say Africa for
okay.
You careful na fi nsua na babo ayen.
Yo.
Ekuo no enyanyan ni bi. Enyanyan ni bi. Kwai.
I say this is the good side of the secret societies that Africa must borrow and implement.
And then how do we see? How do we see?
Ampa,
yeah.
Borrow na ya implement it.
And until now, I see good side. Na secret court good side home.
Abu no muka.
Secret side.
I not bet that down.
Yeah. Freemason. Mean to be can one more secret to be your hand more. Because.
Sir.
Emu. Yeah. Omo ade bi omo ye. Na so here to me a ebi aba be ye omo mpanin. Oye media ni, oye business guy. Say bia we say oye media man. We here to me spiritually physically. Asa na wotimo no. Oso fro kwa ka ho. Onka
David.
Asa wo sokodwa na bi. Na wo kasa amanfo de etio. We na the Bush oya campaign. Na John Kerry so ya campaign. Na tama edu interview no. I was say Ghana say e election the free MPP presidential NDC presidential. Na etu at to ma no
debate.
Thank you. Omo free Bush no. Oya score a moons. I'm say it's one kura. Yeah, say
skull and bone.
Yeah. Pacho hold on here's our picture no.
Yo.
Square and bones no.
Yeah, the skull and bone first
I'm on for sure. Na ano ana ibisa the boy say when you secret court or skull and bones or say a secret to nka aha we Bush ni o na Clinton so ni
Bush na was so na Clinton so wa
when na interview no the bisa Bush say o do no court secret court o so do no secret court person who say na mutie o ka say mu ase e ho pa
okay yo sabuku yi ma na yegusu kan yo
na amanfo say boni bi anim secret bi anim tie Bush
yo interview no I say in 2004 when George W. Bush was asked during the presidential campaign to comment on his skull and bones experiences he said they were so secret we can't talk about it.
You kind of one thing. You kind of one thing. What it? Mean to mean, are there yet? Our soon infantry one thing. Tobacco say.
The other one to say, Bisa was saying, when the question was turned over to his Democratic opponent, John Kerry, another bones man, he simply said, not much because it's a secret.
Thank you. I know. And now, na first video I'm be you say Order of Zion.
Okay.
Omo say sa court we say no. E hoda da na school so kwa no ne mama the girlfriend no Mary Magdalene. No mo join sa court no. So be kan bi a e be boa mo ho me play. When you to me what to control nipa. No here.
But you say video ne friend saying.
A friend
Order of Zion.
Order of Zion, yes.
Abusia MC amufa sa video no.
Freemasons, Rosicrucians, Illuminati, orders known to mankind that probably still dictate some of the most important events in the world, standing in the shadows. Whether it's a mystery of their rituals, the intrigue of their secret activities, or the occult knowledge they carry over the centuries, these orders and brotherhoods continue to captivate our imagination with their mystery. Get to where they are today, the New World Order conspiracy and the fate of human civilization. Behind all this stands a mystery called the Order of Zion, a secret society founded in the 11th century that played an essential role in preserving certain esoteric knowledge.
Who are you?
There have been many names. guardians, the Priory of Sion.
The Order of Sion is believed to be dedicated to the mystical bloodline of Jesus and Mary Magdalene and the sacred teachings passed down to their descendants, and is credited with creating the Knights Templar. But did the Order of Sion really exist? How was it created? Were its members initiated into ancient secret knowledge, mysteries, and spiritual beliefs? We will try to find out together in the new episode of Secret Origins. Welcome. The Order of Sion is shrouded in mystery and not much is known about it. Because of the limited and conflicting information about it, its very existence has long been doubted, and the alleged activities it engaged.
Jesus in church and Jesus in seven crano, Ninano, Jesus Azori Samuna,
Sana Wamo Eka,
Wamo Kano,
a Brunia dia, oh yeah, of only 2 maybe, or then near ma. No, Makacha say, I do say that Abomu it has helping them into African for Yamasum, Yebi, implement it.
That's how sorry, someone on the bayou.
Oh, I follow on the side. I'm not a battle, we come home. Sir, I'm not a battle, we come home. Mamma, what Bob maybe, but for bidding.
Okay.
Udu Ganania, Batra,
Matthias,
I'm done Freemason, but for. I asked for Batra.
My Batra.
Thank you. Na.
The Asemo.
Shade. Bruni. Enjoy you.
Papa.
Almost say,
I say, you near you before.
David, Dada.
You near you cry.
Yada.
Yada, Betty Biano, I fire can't say near the tree. Yada.
And until we know, as I say, it's a don't to me, Adrian.
Oh, okay.
Until me adverts.
Okay.
And but it's no.
Okay. You.
We are Kola, this will be a Unya Juma. Uya Juma.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Dabi.
Okay.
Unya Lebla.
Okay.
Yempel.
Okay. Oh, is that Uya Juma? Juma Mudu.
Thank you.
We are banker.
No, good.
Yes.
Unya Lebla. But remember to me, 20 come more. See, as someone can say.
Freemasons, 11th May 2006, the Accra Daily Mail. Freemasons open their doors. We are not cloaked in mystery. Martin Daniels. Mr. Samuel B. Martin Daniels.
Ghana how?
Yeah. We are no enemy.
Ghana haya.
Yeah. Mr. Samuel B. Martin Daniels, chairman of the Public Relations Unit of the District Grand Lodge of Ghana, has urged the public to disabuse their minds of the erroneous perception of Freemasons being secret societies that engage in occult practices. He said Freemasonry, like all associations, is aimed at making people become good citizens, as well as contribute meaningfully to the development of their societies. Mr. Martin Daniel was speaking at a media soiree organized by the District Grand Lodge of Ghana, English Constitution, as a means of opening its doors to the media to dispel the myths surrounding the practice of Freemasonry in Ghana. The occasion was the first time ever that Freemasonry had opened up its doors freely and at length to the members of the mass media in Ghana. The soiree was also used to launch a year-long program for the Diamond Jubilee celebration of the District Grand Lodge of Ghana. Mr. Martin Daniel said the evolution of Freemasonry since it was first introduced in Ghana in 1810 has been through dangers and difficulties, citing financial constraints coupled with misconception and misinformation about the aims and objectives of the association. He, however, said the increase in the number of lodges from 7 to 57 in 75 years is a commendable achievement. Mr. Daniel Martins said a major threat to the survival and practice of Freemasonry in the country is the wrong perception that the lodge is a secret society.
Okay, John. I say a wrong one.
Yeah.
As someone bisa Bush.
You bisa and say, Nico na woman. Yes, you know. Uncle Munsam Kakra. I say that be a secret. And your mom, you need a secret. I ain't to my carbon say, and then it was what I say. Ah, we know or your advert. Yeah, your advert. Sir, it's not the bushy canon. And we say canon. Sir, I contradict. Thank you. Sir, Pepe. Yeah, money. And I know, and a Bruno or more, yeah. The Canadian can have me. But I can say Africa for you, sir. Anyway, sir. You can't be you American. I'm saying Africa for you, sir. They implement it, sir. You maybe. I'll say this is the good side of the secret societies that Africa must borrow and implement. Our countries are in dire need of such services. Our own secret societies. We may hate the Afrikaner Brother Band secret society for what it stood for in apartheid South Africa.
No, I say about the side until African for no muhajim.
Papa.
Ah, obija edwane bi. Men kind of bad side. Because I say the good side. No, but the kind of boa. The bad side no yan ko horomo. Ama mpanifo akachefo adwumayefo ahemfo obia de no muhajim. Question me say Freemason. And no utumi famu nya ho yankopon wana.
Okay.
Two. A day na Freemason wo mo ye. Abro ni ka say e good pantana e be sombi na fi ye fanko betuma aboa Africa no. E pe no so mi omso mo bi no abo Africa for.
Abe sin na.
Amwaye. Na second video.
Okay.
Aba for stay. And then for the second me Freemason because opportunity not the person. No here second video.
Okay. Second video, mfacho MCR.
Ana anya so.
Dabi.
So the church.
Yeah.
And society obi atumi bia na bi. Here.
Adanse akyerɛ sɛ ampa Ghana ha Freemason abedu sɛnea buku ne kan sɛ Africa for munye mumboro na mu implement no abedu a yeto nyame anyum a yetwi sɛ nyame bɛyɛ enu na yenyina yeto ye no Israel
eso omunye nkopon ni o they believe God
they dudu apa sorry pa sorry
na okomu a unya links
yeah of course
unya tumi so you be able to there e aye omaya man kwara no etumi awura mu bi onhwe third video man wasi kwara
yo
because omaya advert
okay yeah I must say obiya betimi advert it's open for say you can see Martin Daniels I say obiya betimi abadwane mo fa sa video no ngum mai
in school nyina
omo nyina wo Kama na wani guso a wohwe Royal Television eso na se we the emrantie mamu akra se yunhwa ye initiative you say no the door is open for emrantie mamu we nya emrantie o mu nyandu pempen so be from emrantie we ye mamu na ye guso initiative no Israel
you see edu Ghana ha no mo a say schools nyina no enkra we say on pe 2 million sunya de enti no okobia say obenya 2 million no de sunya de enti no students school for bebre no adom ho agem a obewie no na say links
or member
otumi kasama pene ho bopo otumi intumi friends and say waka che be sunya say otumi kobia otumi sunya de hwenkwara de no omoye no kwara Uko campus sa
university hopa
omutum challenge omo ho tumi no omo de ye ade abroni eyo no krom no o se eye tie nsuya kwase me say as Africa kwa no inim nyankopon
ase ne ni bibia ye
thank you
e ma ye tumi ade ye
tumi no e kwaje no be fro ya so nyankopon dabi broni ba say no o de kwada ba letter ba I'm going to say, I'm going to African for
Nyame.
Thank you. They know God already. To focus say, ya phone your couple say bra. We don't know. Bruni do ya different to me no. Or the man. Ya embrace. Ben for embrace. I am for embrace. Obi I embrace and ya call. Say the way to God. No. Nti me say ade bia bruni aye bia South Africa for nyintum no afi ada so de ana no enkola nko school na no embrace petumi na wo wura mu a
na obehu
e de boy fundaka e si ho for initiation e do tum na no ba ye no men kan ha o wi a afi de on say o ye bema o jona so pi na woni yankopon tem de men kan no no me kan say ade abroni yo ne krom no no so be bi no on ti ase a on kon ko shem ade abroni yo ne krom no on ti ase a efe won shem obewie no so obi wure so ko sie no a kun ensema bele o ma busa fo nyina firi ho no mo na ka o mo nko a ntona abafro ka say a secret
omade ye nyina
yeah nti broni onyane yen o ma court ile ho ahwem ene ekoya nim anwasi
yeda say Israel say na no asi na we questions are ankrofo bisa say eden na bibifo ya ye kra ama enti obade asotwe abaye so no wahu enema Israel tiremu we kwasikoko na de ba yo ena wakofa sa ne ma we nyina no de abeto ye so ena we num na e kire se ampa asotwe nti ofama yake ka quotation e kire se o se enipa bi a onyankopon se omoye nkwasiafo omuwom se omoye nipa sankrofo no de wan be twe yaso nti Israel mo wahu se sankrofo eniema omo de bre yen no wahu se sa ne ma nyina ye niema be yi afi yade ye ho ye papa no abeyi afi wa menne ye diomade ye tima ohaw ne amane ne kwadanda enti aya mo amu bisa questions no wahu se ensam no bi se no yi ensam no bi anu yada mo ase se Matias yesa na Matias yesa ye yi mo ensam no ebi ano okay me for messages ni kakra na but mo fa line no so ento so na abusuafo no we say hi good afternoon eno no de baye ni din wanfa amma okay we say hey nyame ben na wow mubo ni din no asemo God bless you all Amache Senior okay what name are they mentioning in the song is it Yahuwah or other god asemo Amache Senior okay Amache bacho they making kind way was so ne de mo frɛ me a emmoa me men frɛ me wo eno so o hwɛ TV na se a TV ne so obehu se line no e da ho frɛ me wo eno so na ye ni nkomo o frɛ me a na walowa volume no ana se o TV set no walowa volume no ana se obedum no na watime enemy akasa. Hello, udini fa kwa ofrefi. Hello, udini fa kwa ofrefi.
Mr. Yoga, Mikata Bogoso.
Yo, yetio.
Mikata Bogoso.
Yetio.
Your friend Bra Yoga, Mikata Bogoso.
Utio.
Nia me team wache. Na moncheche na society asumpa. Na abofuna kata no, wo mso bone be na wo mso ye enam so menya sponsor ejo mso like.
Yo, yate yeda say no question. Embanyifu ate question. So upon all the natural resources Africa, especially Ghana, have in possession, do we have to seek for IMF and World Bank assistance before we can develop? This tells you we are lacking foresight, leaders, and it's about time we wake up our minds as Africans to reason straight. Suffer from Sehi for Sukrum. Hello, Udini Fakwa Frefi.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Udin any Fakwa Frefi.
Hello.
Hello, Utia Wana. Me say Okay. I'll say good afternoon. We knew nothing about God before they came, right? If so, why are we really suffering in other nations' hands? So are you saying our traditional ways are good? Worshipping smaller gods were good or bad? Hello, Udini Fakwa Frefi. Hello? Yeah, hello, Udini Fakwa Frefi. Yetio.
Nakanya mwa se Ghana yo Japadi BBC. Anka ho tre se ya so ye mai just na shumnapa. Na shumnapa. What they say no. Hey, Ghana, ni Africa no mwa ni nawo. Ni nawo manwes.
Yeah, that's it. Please, good afternoon. Lami, tell your guys in Ghana we don't initiating young boys or ladies into the Freemasons. The last video was not a Ghanaian people's. Yo, yate. Hello, Udini Fakwa Ofrefi. Hello, Udini Fakwa Ofrefi. Otieno. Papa, does heaven and hell exist? Yo, obi question obisa enono. We hello, Udini Fakwa Ofrefi. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, Udini Fakwa Ofrefi. Otieno ho. Mo ba, mamuntie mo ho. Ade no, enye TV na ne kasa, wo ne me na kasa. Eti wo ba, na wadumu TV na waloa. Hello, Udini Fakwa Ofrefi. Hello. Hello, Udini Fakwa Ofrefi. Yo, mi pacho. Pacho, position wo ye na.
Mr. So, you don't question ya mu ya no. Enti abrafo so onyoko pa to ma sama na no. Na ajo amatem.
Yo, ya te mpanyifo ate wanu di question na obisa no mpanyifo ate. Why? Shalom, shalom. Greetings to Wafa Poku Dankwa, the dynamic decoder researcher. May God bless him, power, and greetings to Brother Israel, Brother Kumi, Brother Willie, Mama Africa, and all the Free the Mind movement branches, especially Kumasi branch from Abrewa Nana Swag. May Yah bless us all. Sila. Hello, Udini Fakwa Ofrefi.
Hello?
Hello, Udini Fakwa Ofrefi. Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Casti Gold from Aweso. Hey. Yo. Anonkwana Odebaye. Okay, we say good afternoon. We say good afternoon. Wake up, Africa.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Udini Fakwa Ofrefi. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Dini Fakwa Ofrefi. Yo, one this yetio.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Wake up, Africa. You always wake us and thank for your teaching. I'm Razak from Sampa, German North. Okay. Hello, Dini Fakwa Ofrefi.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Governor, I'm the Deputy School, Western Region.
Maybe I told you.
Okay. I don't want to ask you one check here about the man, but I'm going to question one thing and bigger. Before I have the we're going to introduce to Christianity. I remember when I asked you in Ankopan, but then I'm going to but then this the non better God as compared to my quite introducing into Honorana.
Okay. Of our Bisasa, Yamina na Yasom no the universal God. And Sana White and never introduce you Yamifo Achreana. Ombesom who said, Yamina Yasom no Yamina Kasa. And I said, I assume Yamifo and Sana White and neighbor, San Opesa Obisa. Okay. We say, good afternoon. Atakojo Boahen from Apeu, Wawase, near Suhum. Hey. Enti abropani. Okay, yo, yada se ene wasema ode aba. We so say Chumasi, thank you for the knowledge. Okay, yo. From Jones, I'm watching you live from Manso Tonto Krum. I'm enjoying the show. God Almighty bless you all. Yo. Yada say ene wishira odema abusuani nyina. Oh, Ghana, why are we not hearing this prophet? This prophet. The prophet is I know how spelling it. So that we can really own Pastor Sancho wa inibra bimwai na. Okay, good afternoon, sir. Please, my question is, after knowing all this information, what should we do as Africans to liberate ourselves from this people? Solomon, and a day we buy it. Abusia, aha, and I draw curtains, no. Now, a benefit minimum di Juma and nay, a of fire, Poku Dankwa, executive director, at the Micro FN Freedom Mind Movement. On any bar, Israel and Chroma, our national coordinator at the Micro FN Freedom Mind Movement. And some are far, Eddie Wura Muno. Eye ekwan akosi kokko enam so a eba sikasem wa kruchire niema ama nei sikasem no yese saa ebeboa ye nanso kosi kokko trimu po no ene se odisika baaye dibechinchin be control ye nyina ene wa kayagu ayi keji mu ena ne ope no ode eye yen medin ane Kofi Kumi me na medi dwumadi emtiame ebia na wasembisa bi opese bibi wo ho e kire wadwene opese obisa ane for number we 0244686557 0244686557 obo ade adom yen adase ne ye be se hia akram.
Have you what that child kwama bia no a Christopher ahote for